At dawn on August 10th, 1792, the royal family awoke in the Tuileries palace to the sound of warning bells echoing across Paris. A crowd of National Guardsmen, fédérés and armed citizens, some numbering the king's former subjects, were assembling to storm the palace. For Marie Antoinette, it was the final unravelling of her royal identity. Just 3 years earlier, she had been Queen of France in all splendour. Now she stood behind barricaded doors, awaiting the collapse of monarchy. The Tuileries had become the royal family's gilded prison after their failed escape attempt to Varennes in June 1791. That attempt shattered what little trust remained between the king and the revolutionaries. From that point, public hostility intensified, not just toward Louis XVI, but especially toward Marie Antoinette, who was derided in pamphlets and caricatures as Madame Deficit and accused of undermining France from within. Her Austrian birth only deepened suspicions of treachery. As insurgents surged toward the palace on that August morning, the royal guards, Swiss mercenaries loyal to the king, held their ground. But Louis XVI, hesitant and indecisive, refused to authorize force. Instead, he led his family across the gardens to seek protection from the National Convention in the nearby Legislative Assembly. The palace was left behind, and within hours it was overrun. Hundreds died in the ensuing violence, including dozens of the king's guards. That same day, the monarchy was suspended. The royal family was taken under armed escort to the Temple, a medieval fortress in Paris. Marie Antoinette's transformation from queen to prisoner was now complete. No longer referred to with royal titles, she was simply the widow Capet in revolutionary discourse. Even though the king still lived, she would never again sleep in a palace, alone in the Conciergerie, the queen's terrifying imprisonment. On the night of August 2nd, 1793, municipal officials of the Paris Commune entered the Temple prison and informed Marie Antoinette she was to be transferred. According to the records of the Revolutionary Tribunal, she was escorted before dawn to the Conciergerie, the prison on the Ile de la Cité, known as the antechamber of the guillotine. From that moment, she was severed entirely from her surviving family. Her daughter, Madame Royale, later recalled in her memoirs that her mother embraced her without speaking, fully aware that every word could be overheard. The prison registry logged her as Widow Capet, a name deliberately imposed by revolutionary authorities to strip her of royal identity. Her cell was located in the women's section just above the river. Contemporary plans of the Conciergerie, including those archived by the Commission des Monuments Historiques, show the cell measured roughly 3 by 2 meters, enclosed by stone walls and iron bars, with a single slit window. Eyewitness descriptions, such as those by the prison reformer Jacques-Pierre Brissot, describe the women's cells as cold, damp, and infested with lice and rats. She was initially given no bed and slept on straw. An official decree dated August 5, 1793, ordered her to be placed under continuous surveillance without interruption. 2 gendarmes were posted inside her cell, refusing to turn away even when she changed clothes or attempted to clean herself. In his testimony before the tribunal, Officer Jean-Baptiste Michonis admitted that she had no privacy. A prison doctor, whose notes were preserved in the archives of the Paris Revolutionary Committee, reported that the former queen exhibited symptoms of uterine hemorrhaging, extreme weight loss and exhaustion. He was permitted only limited access. By late September, her appearance had changed drastically. Observers such as Lord Gower, the British ambassador, recorded reports that her hair had turned fully white. In a final act of defiance, Marie Antoinette attempted to smuggle a note to her sister-in-law, Madame Elizabeth. The letter, now preserved in the Archives Nationales, was intercepted and never delivered. In it, she wrote simply, "I have nothing left to hope for in this world. The humiliation of the trial, a queen on the stand. Marie Antoinette's trial before the Revolutionary Tribunal began on the morning of October 14, 1793, in the main hall of the Conciergerie. Official transcripts, later published in the Bulletin du Tribunal Révolutionnaire, show that the charges against her were not limited to treason. She was accused of orchestrating counter-revolutionary plots, colluding with foreign powers, and, most notoriously, of committing incest with her young son, the Dauphin Louis Charles. This last accusation, based on claims extracted from the child while imprisoned, was denounced even by some revolutionaries as a political tactic. The trial was overseen by Antoine Quentin Fouquier-Tinville, the public prosecutor of the tribunal, known for his role in organizing swift executions. The courtroom was surrounded by armed guards and packed with selected spectators loyal to the Jacobins. According to reports by British diplomat Francis Jackson, who received first-hand accounts from observers, the atmosphere was one of spectacle rather than justice. Marie Antoinette appeared in a black dress and white bonnet. Eyewitnesses, such as the journalist Prudhomme, noted her sunken eyes and pallor, though he acknowledged that she maintained a firm posture. When asked about her correspondence with foreign powers, she denied involvement in military plots. In response to the incest accusation, her only words recorded in the official minutes were, "I appeal to all mothers." The courtroom reportedly fell silent as even her enemies hesitated to press further. Testimony was mostly based on rumors and distorted interpretations of her private letters, many of which had been seized during the invasion of the Tuileries in 1792. The so-called armoire de fer, a hidden safe discovered in the Tuileries palace, was presented as evidence of her secret dealings. However, many of the documents were either ambiguous or unrelated to her direct actions. After 2 days of testimony, with minimal defense and no opportunity to call witnesses, the jury returned a unanimous verdict, death by guillotine. She showed no visible reaction. The verdict was read aloud in court at 4 a.m. on October 16th. She was given only a few hours to prepare for her execution. The cart ride to death, a queen's final moments. At 7 a.m. on October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette was awakened in her cell in the Conciergerie, according to the prison records and the account of Marie Groschutz, later known as Madame Tussaud, who was present in the prison during that period. She was allowed to change into a plain white chemise and had her hands bound behind her back. Unlike her husband Louis XVI, who had been executed in January, she was not offered a closed carriage. Instead, she was placed in an open wooden cart, the same used for common criminals. Alas, the route from the Conciergerie to the Place de la Révolution was deliberately slow. Contemporary police reports describe the escort as composed of gendarmerie and National Guards, with mounted troops flanking the cart. The execution procession passed through Rue Saint-Honoré, where thousands of spectators lined the streets. One of the most detailed accounts comes from Jacques Roux, a radical revolutionary who observed the procession and noted that the former queen was silent, her head held upright, her gaze fixed straight ahead. The cart ride lasted over an hour, and multiple witnesses commented on her physical appearance. Her white hair had been cut short by the executioner's assistant, as was customary before decapitation. At the scaffold, Henri Sanson, the executioner, helped her ascend the steps. In his later deposition, he recorded that she accidentally stepped on his foot and immediately apologized. Her final recorded words, "Pardon me, sir, I did not do it on purpose." At 12:15 p.m., the blade of the guillotine fell. Official minutes of the execution noted that the crowd shouted, "Vive la République!" But numerous observers, such as the journalist Mercier, remarked on a momentary silence as her body was placed in a common coffin. She was buried in an unmarked grave in the Cimetière de la Madeleine, along with hundreds of others executed during the Terror. It would not be until 1815, with the Bourbon Restoration, that her remains were exhumed and reinterred at the Basilica of Saint-Denis, the traditional burial site of French royalty. The fall of Marie Antoinette was more than the death of a monarch. It marked the destruction of an entire order built on divine right and inherited privilege. Her trial and execution revealed how revolution can devour its symbols as swiftly as it creates them. Comment below, did her death represent justice for the people, or the beginning of a new tyranny born from vengeance? As she wrote in her final letter to Madame Elizabeth on the morning of her execution, "I forgive all my enemies. I die in the hope that my death will unite my children